Warriors and Valkyries, welcome to our Hall of Norse Tales. Before we embark on our journey through the fjords of imagination, don't forget to join our tribe. Ring the notification bell, raise your axes by giving a like, and leave in the comments which realm you're watching from. Now, settle close to the hearth, for our saga is about to begin. As twilight descended upon Asgard, casting a warm golden glow across the celestial realm, the goddess Freya stood before her ornate mirror, admiring the radiant necklace that adorned her neck. Brisingamen, crafted by the skilled dwarven smiths, glimmered with an otherworldly light, its precious gems reflecting the fading sunlight in a dazzling display. Freya smiled softly, running her fingers along the intricate metalwork. "My dear Brisingamen," she whispered, "you are truly the most beautiful treasure in all the 9 worlds." The goddess turned away from the mirror, her flowing gown rustling as she moved towards the balcony of her chambers. The sweet scent of blooming flowers wafted through the air, carried on a gentle breeze that caressed her golden hair. Freya closed her eyes, basking in the serenity of the moment. Suddenly, a chill ran down her spine. Something felt amiss. Freya's eyes snapped open, her hand instinctively reaching for her neck. Her fingers met bare skin where the familiar weight of Brisingamen should have been. "No," she gasped, her voice barely audible. "It cannot be." Panic rising in her chest, Freya rushed back into her chambers, her eyes darting frantically around the room. She searched under silken pillows, behind ornate tapestries, and within every drawer and chest, her movements growing more frantic with each passing moment. "Guards!" she called out, her voice echoing through the halls. "Come quickly!" The thundering of footsteps announced the arrival of the Aesir guards, their golden armor gleaming in the fading light. They entered Freya's chambers, bowing deeply before their goddess. "My lady," the captain spoke, his voice filled with concern. "What troubles you?" Freya's voice trembled as she replied, "Brisingamen, my necklace. It has vanished." A collective gasp rippled through the guards. They knew well the importance of the goddess's prized possession, not just as a symbol of her beauty and power, but as a cornerstone of the delicate balance between Asgard and Midgard. "Search every corner of Asgard," Freya commanded, her usual gentle demeanor replaced by urgent authority. "Leave no stone unturned. Brisingamen must be found." As the guards dispersed to carry out her orders, Freya sank onto a nearby chaise, her shoulders sagging under the weight of her loss. The room seemed to darken, as if Brisingamen's absence had dimmed the very light of Asgard itself. Hours passed, and still, there was no sign of the necklace. Freya paced her chambers, her anxiety growing with each moment. The other gods had been alerted, and even Odin himself had joined the search, understanding the gravity of the situation. As night fell, Thor approached Freya's chambers, his usually booming voice subdued. "Sister," he called softly, "may I enter?" "Come in, Thor," Freya replied, her voice heavy with sorrow. The god of thunder stepped inside, his imposing figure softened by the concern etched on his face. "We have searched all of Asgard," he reported, "but Brisingamen remains lost to us." Freya nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I fear this is no ordinary theft, brother. The necklace was here one moment, and gone the next, as if by magic." Thor's brow furrowed. "Magic, you say? Perhaps we should consult with Odin. If there is sorcery at play, he would know." As they made their way to Odin's great hall, whispers and worried glances followed them. The news of Brisingamen's disappearance had spread quickly, and a sense of unease had settled over Asgard like a heavy fog. Odin sat upon his throne, Hugin and Munin perched on his shoulders. His one eye gazed at Freya with a mixture of sympathy and concern. "My dear Freya," he began, his voice resonating through the hall, "the loss of Brisingamen is grave indeed. Its power helps maintain the balance between our realm and Midgard." Freya nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know, All-Father. What are we to do?" Odin stroked his beard thoughtfully, We must look beyond Asgard, perhaps to Midgard itself, or even to the realm of the giants. Whoever took Brisingamen knew its value and power. We cannot rule out any possibility. As the gods debated their next move, a cold wind blew through the hall, extinguishing several torches and plunging portions of the room into darkness. In the shadows, unseen by all, a figure smiled mischievously before slipping away unnoticed. The vanishing of Brisingamen had set in motion events that would ripple across the 9 worlds, testing the bonds between gods and mortals alike. As Freya gazed out into the night sky, her heart heavy with loss, she couldn't help but wonder what challenges lay ahead and who would rise to face them. In the bustling streets of Midgard, where the scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the earthy aroma of rain-soaked cobblestones, a lithe figure moved with cat-like grace through the evening shadows. Revna, known in whispered circles as the most skilled thief in all the land, had just completed another successful heist. Her nimble fingers twirled a gleaming ruby as she slipped into a narrow alleyway, a satisfied smirk playing on her lips. Another day, another treasure, she murmured to herself, admiring the way the gem caught the fading light. As Revna turned to make her way home, a cold voice cut through the silence, freezing her in her tracks. "Impressive work, as always, little thief." Revna whirled around, her hand instinctively reaching for the dagger concealed in her boot. From the shadows emerged a tall, cloaked figure, their face hidden beneath a deep hood. "Who are you?" Revna demanded, her voice steady despite the sudden racing of her heart. The figure chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "Who I am is of little consequence. What matters is what I know about you, Revna the Shadow Walker." Revna's eyes narrowed. "And what exactly do you think you know?" "Oh, I know many things," the stranger replied, circling Revna like a predator stalking its prey. "I know about the orphanage you burned down when you were just a child. I know about the nobleman you left penniless last winter. And I know about the ancient texts you stole from the Temple of Odin." With each revelation, Revna felt the blood drain from her face. These were secrets she had guarded fiercely, crimes that could see her hanged if brought to light. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The cloaked figure stopped directly in front of her. "I have a task for you, little thief, one that will require all of your considerable skills." Revna's mind raced. She was being blackmailed, trapped like a fox in a snare. But perhaps she could still find a way out. "And if I refuse?" "Then I'm afraid your colorful history will become common knowledge. I wonder how long you'd survive once your victims learn your true identity." Revna's shoulders sagged in defeat. "What's the job?" The stranger's voice took on a note of triumph. "I need you to recover something of great value. A necklace, to be precise." "A necklace?" Revna scoffed. "Surely you don't need someone of my talents for a simple piece of jewelry." "Ah, but this is no ordinary necklace," the figure replied. "This is Brisingamen, the prized possession of the goddess Freya herself." Revna's eyes widened in disbelief. "You want me to steal from a god? That's madness. It's impossible." "Nothing is impossible for one of your skills, is it, Revna?" The stranger's voice was silky smooth, laden with dangerous promise. "Besides, the necklace has already been stolen. Your job is simply to reacquire it." Revna's mind whirled with the implications. Stealing from mortals was one thing, but getting involved in the affairs of gods? It was beyond reckless. Yet, what choice did she have? "How am I supposed to even begin such a task?" she asked, her voice tinged with resignation. The cloaked figure produced a small, intricately carved wooden box. "This will guide you. Inside you'll find a map and instructions. Follow them, and they will lead you to Brisingamen." Revna took the box with trembling hands, feeling as though she were sealing her own fate. "Remember, little thief," the stranger warned, already melting back into the shadows. "Failure is not an option. The consequences would be most unpleasant." As quickly as they had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving Revna alone in the alley with nothing but a wooden box and a weight of dread in her stomach. She slumped against the cold stone wall, sliding down until she sat on the damp ground. Opening the box with shaking fingers, she examined its contents. A map unlike any she had ever seen, showing pathways between realms she had only heard of in legends, and a series of cryptic instructions written in a script that seemed to shimmer and change as she looked at it. "What have I gotten myself into?" Revna whispered to the empty alley. As the full moon rose over the city, casting long shadows across the cobblestones, Revna made her way back to her modest lodgings. Her mind raced with plans and possibilities, each more outlandish than the last. How could a mortal hope to navigate the realm of gods and giants? In her small, cluttered room, Revna began to gather supplies. Sharp knives, lockpicks, rope, and various tools of her trade found their way into a sturdy leather pack. She donned her darkest clothes, perfect for blending into shadows, and pulled on soft-soled boots that would allow her to move silently. As she prepared, a soft meow caught her attention. Her old tomcat, Skuggi, watched her with knowing yellow eyes. "Don't look at me like that, old friend," Revna sighed, scratching the cat behind his ears. "I don't have a choice." Skuggi purred, rubbing against her leg as if to offer comfort. With a heavy heart, Revna slung the pack over her shoulder and took one last look around her room. For all she knew, this might be the last time she ever saw it. "Well, Skuggi," she said, her voice barely steady, "wish me luck. I have a feeling I'm going to need it." And with that, Revna slipped out into the night, embarking on a quest that would take her beyond the boundaries of her world and test every skill she possessed. The reluctant thief was about to become an unwitting player in a game of gods and giants, with the fate of multiple realms hanging in the balance. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, Revna stood at the edge of the ancient forest, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The map from the mysterious wooden box had led her here, to a place where the veil between worlds was said to be thinnest. "Well, here goes nothing," she muttered to herself, taking a deep breath before stepping into the mist-shrouded woods. The forest seemed to come alive around her, the trees whispering secrets in a language just beyond her understanding. Revna moved carefully, her trained thief's instincts on high alert for any sign of danger. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the woods, the air grew thick with magic, making her skin tingle. Suddenly, she came upon a clearing bathed in ethereal light. At its center stood an enormous ash tree, its branches reaching towards the heavens, and its roots disappearing into the earth below. Revna's breath caught in her throat as she realized what she was seeing. "Yggdrasil," she whispered in awe, "the world tree." As if responding to her voice, the tree seemed to shimmer, and a doorway of light appeared at its base. Revna approached cautiously, her hand instinctively reaching for the dagger at her belt. "Turn back, mortal," a voice echoed from within the tree. "This path is not for the faint of heart." Revna squared her shoulders, pushing down her fear. "I seek passage to Asgard," she declared, her voice stronger than she felt. "I have a task to complete." A figure materialized before her, neither male nor female, its form constantly shifting like smoke in the wind. And what task could be so important that a mortal would risk the perils of the world tree? Revna hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I must recover something that was lost. Something important to the balance of the realms. The figure studied her for a long moment, its gaze seeming to pierce through to her very soul. Finally, it nodded. "Very well. But be warned, the journey will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Are you prepared to face the trials that await?" Revna swallowed hard but nodded firmly. "I am." With a gesture from the figure, the doorway of light expanded, revealing a swirling vortex of colors. "Step through, and your journey will begin. May the Norns smile upon your quest." Taking a deep breath, Revna stepped into the light. The world around her dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors and sensations, She felt herself being pulled in all directions at once, tumbling through space and time. As suddenly as it began, the chaos ceased, and Revna found herself standing on a branch of Yggdrasil itself. The sight that greeted her was beyond anything she could have imagined. Stretching out in all directions were the branches and roots of the world tree, each one a pathway to a different realm. "By the gods!" Revna breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. She began to move along the branch, her steps careful and measured. The bark beneath her feet seemed to pulse with life, and she could feel the raw power of the universe flowing through the tree. As she traveled, Revna caught glimpses of the different realms. She saw the icy wastes of Niflheim, the fiery depths of Muspelheim, and the mist-shrouded mountains of Jotunheim. Each sight filled her with a mix of awe and trepidation. Suddenly, a shimmering aurora appeared before her, bridging the gap between two massive branches. Revna recognized it as the Bifrost, the rainbow bridge connecting Asgard and Midgard. As she approached the aurora, a booming voice rang out, "Halt! Who dares approach the gates of Asgard?" Revna looked up to see a towering figure standing at the end of the bridge, his golden armor gleaming in the ethereal light. She recognized him immediately from the tales, Heimdall, the all-seeing guardian of Asgard. Summoning her courage, Revna called out, "I am Revna of Midgard. I seek entry to Asgard on a quest of great importance." Heimdall's piercing gaze seemed to look right through her. "I see all, mortal. Your quest is shrouded in secrecy and danger. Why should I allow you passage?" Revna's mind raced, knowing that her next words could determine the success or failure of her mission. "Great Heimdall," she began, choosing her words carefully, "I come not as a threat, but as one who seeks to restore balance. A great treasure has been stolen, and I aim to return it to its rightful place." Heimdall remained silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke. "Your words ring true, though I sense there is much you leave unsaid. I will grant you passage, Revna of Midgard. But know this. Your actions in Asgard will be watched closely. Tread carefully." With a wave of his hand, the Bifrost bridge solidified before Revna. She took a tentative step onto the shimmering surface, marveling at the play of colors beneath her feet. As she crossed the bridge, the splendor of Asgard came into view. Golden spires reached towards the heavens, while lush gardens and sparkling fountains dotted the landscape. The air itself seemed to shimmer with divine energy. Revna's mortal heart raced with each step, the magnitude of her quest finally sinking in. She was a thief from Midgard, now walking among the realms of gods and legends. The weight of her task, to recover Brisingamen and navigate the complex politics of Asgard, felt heavier than ever. As she reached the end of the Bifrost, Revna paused to look back at the vast expanse of Yggdrasil behind her. The sight of the world tree, with its endless branches connecting the 9 realms, filled her with a sense of smallness, and yet, strangely, of being part of something infinitely larger than herself. Taking a deep breath, Revna turned back to face Asgard. "Well," she murmured to herself, a hint of her old confidence returning. "I wanted a challenge. Looks like I got more than I bargained for." With that, she stepped into the realm of the gods, ready to begin the next phase of her extraordinary journey. The mortal thief had crossed between worlds, and now found herself in a realm of legends, where every step could lead to wonder or peril. The quest to recover Brisingamen had truly begun. Revna crouched in the shadows of a golden pillar, her keen eyes scanning the opulent halls of Asgard. The realm of the gods was a maze of grandeur and magic, every corner holding potential danger for a mortal intruder. But Revna was no ordinary mortal. She was a master thief, and her wit was as sharp as any divine blade. "Think, Revna," she whispered to herself. "Where would a god hide a stolen necklace?" As she pondered her next move, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor. Revna pressed herself further into the shadows, hardly daring to breathe as 2 Aesir guards passed by. "Did you hear?" one guard said to the other. "Thor himself is leading a search party to Jotunheim. They think the giants might have Brisingamen. The other guards scoffed. Jotunheim? Nonsense. It's obviously the work of Loki. When is it not? As their voices faded, a sly smile spread across Revna's face. Information was power, and she had just gained a valuable piece of intel. Carefully, she made her way through the winding corridors, her soft-soled boots silent on the polished floors. She needed to find a way to eavesdrop on the gods themselves, to gather more clues about Brisingamen's whereabouts. As luck would have it, she soon came across a grand meeting hall. Peering through a crack in the ornate doors, she saw Odin himself, deep in discussion with Freya and several other gods. "My ravens have searched far and wide," Odin was saying, his one eye gleaming with concern. "There's no sign of Brisingamen in any of the 9 realms." Freya, her beauty diminished by worry, shook her head. "It must be somewhere, Allfather. Such power cannot simply vanish." Revna's mind raced. If the gods themselves couldn't locate the necklace, how was she supposed to find it? But then, an idea struck her. Sometimes the best place to hide something was in plain sight. Slipping away from the hall, Revna made her way to the gardens of Asgard. There she found a young serving girl tending to the golden apples of Idun. Adopting a regal posture and authoritative tone, Revna approached the girl. "You there? I have an urgent message for Lady Freya. Where might I find her personal chambers?" The serving girl, awed by Revna's confident demeanor, quickly provided directions without question. With this new information, Revna navigated the twisting pathways of Asgard's palace. Soon she found herself outside Freya's private quarters. The door was guarded by 2 imposing Valkyries. Revna knew she couldn't overpower them, but perhaps she could outsmart them. Picking up a small stone, she threw it down the hallway, creating a sharp clatter. "What was that?" one Valkyrie said, alert. "We should check it out," the other replied. "Lady Freya's safety is paramount." As the guards moved to investigate the sound, Revna slipped past them and into Freya's chambers. The room was a marvel of beauty and magic, filled with shimmering fabrics and glowing artifacts. But Revna had no time to admire the decor. She needed to find Brisingamen, and quickly. Her expert eyes scanned the room, looking for any sign of a hidden compartment or magical concealment. That's when she noticed something odd about Freya's vanity mirror. The ornate frame seemed to shimmer slightly, as if it wasn't quite solid. "Clever," Revna murmured, running her fingers along the frame. "Hide it where everyone would expect to see it." With a bit of pressure in just the right spot, the mirror swung open, revealing a small hidden compartment. And there, nestled on a velvet cushion, was Brisingamen. Revna's heart raced as she reached for the necklace, but just as her fingers brushed against it, a voice rang out behind her. "Well, well, what have we here?" Revna spun around to find herself face to face with Loki, the god of mischief himself. His green eyes sparkled with amusement as he regarded the mortal thief. "I must say I'm impressed," Loki said, leaning casually against the doorframe. "Not many mortals would have the wit to find my little hiding spot." Revna's mind worked furiously. She needed to find a way out of this, and fast. "Lord Loki," she said, bowing slightly, "I can explain." Loki raised an eyebrow. "Oh? This should be entertaining. Please do tell me why a mortal thief is trying to steal the necklace I so cleverly stole first." In that moment, Revna made a bold decision. Sometimes the best lie was the truth, or at least, part of it. "My lord, I was sent to recover Brisingamen," she said, meeting Loki's gaze steadily. "But now I see that I was merely a pawn in someone else's game. Perhaps we could come to an arrangement that benefits us both?" Loki's eyes gleamed with interest. "Go on." "You clearly stole the necklace for a reason," Revna continued, her confidence growing. "But now all of Asgard is in uproar, and suspicion will soon fall on you. What if I were to find the necklace elsewhere? You would be above suspicion, and I would complete my task." For a long moment, Loki studied her, his expression unreadable. Then slowly, a grin spread across his face. You know, for a mortal, you're quite clever. I think we might be able to work something out. As Loki and Revna began to hash out the details of their plan, the mortal thief felt a mix of relief and exhilaration. She had matched wits with a god and held her own. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she now knew she had the cleverness to face them. The game had changed, and Revna was no longer just a pawn. She was a player in her own right, navigating the complex web of divine politics with nothing but her wits and courage. The quest for Brisingamen was far from over, but for the first time since it began, Revna felt a glimmer of hope that she might just succeed. As Revna delved deeper into the mystery surrounding Brisingamen's disappearance, she found herself caught in an intricate web of divine intrigue. The threads of this celestial tapestry all seemed to lead back to one source: Loki, the infamous trickster god. Revna crouched behind a shimmering curtain in Odin's great hall, her ears straining to catch every word of the heated discussion taking place. "It must be Loki," Thor's voice boomed, echoing off the golden walls. "Who else would dare steal from Freya herself?" Odin's response was measured, his one eye glinting with wisdom. "We cannot jump to conclusions, my son. Loki may be mischievous, but even he knows the consequences of such a theft." Freya, her beauty marred by worry, spoke softly. "Wherever Brisingamen may be, we must recover it quickly. The balance between realms grows more unstable with each passing moment." As the gods continued their debate, Revna's mind raced. If Loki was indeed behind the theft, how could she, a mere mortal, hope to outmaneuver the god of mischief? Slipping away from the hall, Revna made her way through Asgard's winding corridors, her footsteps silent on the polished floors. She needed to find Loki, to confront him directly, a dangerous gambit, but one that might be her only chance. As if summoned by her thoughts, a silky voice spoke from the shadows. Well, what have we here? A little mouse scurrying about the halls of gods?" Revna spun around, coming face to face with Loki himself. The god's green eyes sparkled with amusement, a sly smile playing on his lips. Swallowing her fear, Revna met his gaze. "Lord Loki, I've been looking for you." Loki's eyebrow arched in surprise. "Oh? And why would a mortal seek me out? Surely you know it's dangerous to play with fire, or in this case, with a god." "I know about Brisingamen," Revna said, her voice steadier than she felt. "And I think you know more than you're letting on." For a moment, Loki's smile faltered, replaced by a flash of something: surprise, respect, before the mischievous grin returned full force. My. Aren't you a clever one?" Loki circled Revna, studying her as a cat might study a particularly interesting mouse. "And what makes you think I had anything to do with the necklace's disappearance?" Revna stood her ground, refusing to be intimidated. "Because this has all the hallmarks of one of your schemes. The chaos, the misdirection, it's all very you, isn't it?" Loki threw back his head and laughed, the sound echoing through the corridor. "Oh, I do like you, little mortal. You have spirit." His eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint appearing in them. "But tell me, why are you really here? Who sent you?" For a moment, Revna hesitated. Then, deciding that partial truth was her best bet, she spoke. "I was coerced into searching for Brisingamen. Someone is using me to recover the necklace." "Ah, so the plot thickens," Loki mused. "And now you think you can turn the tables by coming to me directly? Bold move, I must say." Revna nodded, her heart pounding. "I thought, perhaps we could come to an arrangement, one that benefits us both." Loki's eyes lit up with interest. "Now you're speaking my language, little thief. What did you have in mind?" "You help me recover Brisingamen, and I ensure that suspicion falls elsewhere. Your name stays clear, and I complete my task." For a long moment, Loki was silent, his ageless face unreadable. Then, slowly, a wide grin spread across his features. "Oh, this is too delicious to pass up. A mortal and a god working together to fool the mighty Aesir? It's positively scandalous. He extended his hand to Revna. Very well, clever one. You have yourself a deal. But remember, playing games with the god of mischief is a dangerous sport. Are you sure you're up for it? Revna took his hand, sealing their pact. I'm willing to take that risk, Lord Loki. As their hands clasped, a spark of magic passed between them, binding their agreement. Loki's eyes glittered with mischief and something akin to respect. Then let the game begin, he declared. But first, let me share a little secret with you, my new accomplice. Brisingamen isn't just a pretty bauble. Its power helps maintain the balance between realms. In the wrong hands, it could bring about Ragnarok itself. Revna's eyes widened at this revelation. Then why steal it in the first place? Loki's smile turned enigmatic. But that would be telling, wouldn't it? Let's just say that sometimes, to prevent a disaster, one must first create a little chaos. As Loki began to outline his intricate plan, Revna found herself both exhilarated and terrified. She was now embroiled in a game far beyond her original quest, with the fate of the 9 realms hanging in the balance. The mortal thief and the trickster god worked late into the night, weaving a tapestry of lies and misdirection that would lead their pursuers on a merry chase across the realms. All the while, Brisingamen remained hidden, its true location known only to Loki himself. As dawn broke over Asgard, painting the golden city in hues of pink and orange, Revna realized that her adventure had taken a turn she could never have anticipated. She was now a player in Loki's grand game, walking a tightrope between gods and giants, order and chaos. The quest for Brisingamen had become far more than a simple retrieval mission. It was now a test of wits, courage, and loyalty, with the very fabric of reality at stake. As Revna prepared to set their plan in motion, she couldn't help but wonder, in this game of divine proportions, could a mortal truly hope to emerge victorious? Only time would tell, as the next phase of Loki's mischievous game was about to begin. As the golden sun of Asgard dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the celestial realm, Revna found herself perched on the edge of a precipice, both literally and figuratively. She sat atop one of the towering spires of the god's realm, her legs dangling over the edge as she contemplated the weight of her choices. The cool evening breeze ruffled her hair, carrying with it the sweet scent of Idun's apples and the faint echo of distant laughter from the halls of Valhalla. But Revna's heart was far from merry. The events of the past few days swirled in her mind like a tempest, each memory a sharp reminder of the precarious position she now found herself in. What am I doing? She whispered to the twilight air, her voice barely audible above the gentle wind. On one hand, she had her original quest, the task forced upon her by the mysterious figure who held her past transgressions over her head like a sword of Damocles. The need to recover Brisingamen and return it to Freya, thus restoring balance to the realms, weighed heavily on her conscience. On the other hand, there was her pact with Loki. The god of mischief had drawn her into his intricate game, offering protection and the promise of clearing her name. But at what cost? Loki's plans, while clever, seemed to dance on the edge of chaos, threatening to upend the very balance she had originally set out to restore. As if summoned by her troubled thoughts, a familiar silky voice spoke from behind her. Having second thoughts, little thief? Revna didn't turn, recognizing Loki's presence without needing to see him. Just contemplating the complexities of loyalty, Lord Loki. The trickster god moved to sit beside her, his legs swinging casually over the dizzying drop. Loyalty. Such a fickle thing, isn't it? Especially when one's loyalties are divided. Revna turned to face him, her eyes searching his inscrutable features. Is that what this is all about? A test of my loyalty? Loki's laugh was as sharp as a blade. Everything is a test, my dear. The question is, are you clever enough to pass it? For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant sounds of Asgard's nightlife. Then Revna spoke, her voice low but firm. I agreed to help you, Loki, but I can't ignore the consequences of our actions. The balance between realms. Balance! Loki scoffed, cutting her off. Such a tedious concept. Did it ever occur to you that perhaps the current balance is flawed? That sometimes one must break something to truly fix it? Revna frowned, a crease forming between her brows. But at what cost? The chaos we're creating. It could lead to Ragnarok itself. Loki's eyes gleamed in the fading light, a mixture of mischief and something darker swirling in their depths. And who's to say that Ragnarok isn't necessary? A cleansing fire to burn away the old and make way for the new. The weight of his words settled over Revna like a heavy cloak. She stood up, pacing along the edge of the spire, her mind racing. This isn't what I agreed to. I wanted to clear my name, to right a wrong, not this. Loki rose as well, his tall form casting a long shadow. Oh? And what did you think playing games with gods would entail? Parlor tricks and harmless pranks? His voice took on a dangerous edge. You're in the deep waters now, little mortal. Best learn to swim before you drown. Revna's hand instinctively went to the dagger at her hip, though she knew it would be useless against a god. I won't be a pawn in your game of destruction, Loki. There must be another way. For a long moment, Loki studied her, his ancient eyes seeming to peer into her very soul. Then, unexpectedly, a smile spread across his face. Not his usual mischievous grin, but something almost approving. Well done, Revna of Midgard. You've passed the first test. Confusion replaced fear in Revna's expression. Test? What do you mean? Loki's form shimmered, and suddenly Odin stood before her, his one eye twinkling with wisdom. Not all is as it seems, young one. Loyalty, true loyalty, isn't about blind obedience. It's about standing firm in your convictions, even in the face of a god. As Revna stood there, slack-jawed in astonishment, Odin continued. Freya's necklace was never truly stolen. This was a test, devised to find one worthy of a great task that lies ahead. You've proven yourself clever enough to navigate divine politics, yet moral enough to stand against perceived wrongdoing. The realization of what had transpired washed over Revna like a tidal wave. Relief, indignation, and a touch of pride warred within her. So, everything was a lie? The blackmail? The quest? All of it? Odin shook his head, his expression grave. Not a lie, but a necessary deception. The challenges you faced were real, as were the choices you made. And now, you face the greatest choice of all. He extended his hand, and there, glittering in his palm, was Brisingamen. Will you accept the true quest, Revna of Midgard? To be our agent in the coming storms, to walk between realms and help maintain the balance that grows ever more precarious? Revna stared at the necklace, its jewels reflecting the last rays of Asgard's setting sun. In that moment, she saw the crossroads before her, a return to her old life of thievery and shadows, or a step into a larger world, one filled with both peril and purpose. Taking a deep breath, Revna made her choice. She reached out, her fingers closing around Brisingamen. As she did, she felt a surge of power and responsibility flow through her. I accept, she said, her voice steady and resolute. Odin nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. Then let your true journey begin, Revna, agent of Asgard. The 9 realms await. As night fell over Asgard, Revna stood tall, the weight of her new role settling upon her shoulders. She had passed the test of loyalty, not through blind obedience, but through the strength of her convictions. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges she could scarcely imagine, but for the first time in her life, Revna felt she was exactly where she was meant to be. The grand halls of Asgard hummed with an electric tension as Revna, her heart pounding like a war drum, made her way towards Freya's chambers. In her trembling hands, she clutched Brisingamen, its jewels pulsing with an otherworldly light that seemed to whisper secrets of the cosmos. As she approached the ornate doors, Flanked by stern-faced Valkyries, Revna took a deep breath to steady herself. This was the moment of truth, the culmination of her perilous journey across the realms. "I seek an audience with Lady Freya," Revna announced, her voice surprisingly steady. "I bring news of Brisingamen." The Valkyries exchanged a glance before one nodded curtly. "Enter, mortal, but know that any falsehood or trick will be met with swift justice." The doors swung open, revealing a chamber that seemed to glow with its own inner light. At its center stood Freya, her beauty dimmed by worry, her eyes distant as if searching the far corners of the universe for her lost treasure. As Revna stepped forward, Freya's gaze snapped to her, a spark of hope igniting in those ageless eyes. You're the mortal who's been causing such a stir in Asgard. Have you news of my necklace?" Revna swallowed hard, then slowly extended her hands, revealing Brisingamen in all its glory. "My lady, I bring more than news. I bring Brisingamen itself." A gasp echoed through the chamber as Freya's eyes widened in disbelief. She stepped forward, her movements graceful yet urgent, her hands reaching for the necklace. How is this possible?" Freya whispered, her fingers hovering just above the gleaming jewels. "Where did you find it?" Revna's mind raced, remembering Odin's test and the complex web of truths and half-truths she had navigated. "It was hidden in plain sight, my lady. Sometimes, the most valuable treasures are concealed by our own assumptions." As Freya's fingers touched Brisingamen, a surge of energy pulsed through the room. The necklace seemed to come alive, its light growing brighter and brighter until it was almost blinding. "Step back!" Freya commanded, her voice ringing with divine authority. Revna scrambled backwards as Freya lifted the necklace, its radiance now rivaling that of the sun itself. With a fluid motion born of eons of practice, Freya clasped Brisingamen around her neck. The effect was instantaneous and awe-inspiring. A wave of golden light exploded outward from Freya, washing over everything in its path. Revna felt it pass through her, warm and comforting, like the first rays of dawn after a long, cold night. As the light faded to a soft glow, Revna blinked, her eyes adjusting to the change. The chamber seemed transformed. Colors were more vibrant. The air itself felt cleaner and more invigorating. But the most striking change was in Freya herself. The goddess stood tall, her beauty now restored to its full, breathtaking glory. Her eyes shone with the light of 1,000 stars, and an aura of power and vitality surrounded her like a second skin. "Balance is restored," Freya declared, her voice resonating with newfound strength. "The realms will stabilize, and the threat of chaos has been averted." Her gaze fell upon Revna, softening with gratitude. "And it is all thanks to you, brave mortal." Revna felt a blush creep up her cheeks, unused to such praise, especially from a deity. I merely did what was necessary, my lady." Freya smiled, a sight so beautiful it made Revna's heart ache. Necessity often breeds the greatest heroism. You have done a great service not just to me, but to all the realms. As if summoned by Freya's words, the doors to the chamber burst open. Thor strode in, his face a mixture of confusion and joy. "Sister," I felt a surge of power. "Is it true? Has Brisingamen been returned?" Freya nodded, her smile widening. "Indeed, brother. Thanks to this clever mortal, balance has been restored." Thor's booming laugh filled the chamber as he clapped Revna on the back, nearly sending her sprawling. "Well done, little one. This calls for a celebration." As if on cue, more gods began to file into the chamber, drawn by the commotion and the palpable sense of relief that permeated the air. Odin entered last, his one eye twinkling as it met Revna's gaze. A slight nod from the Allfather confirmed that she had passed his final test. Amid the growing festivities, Freya drew Revna aside. "You have earned a boon, brave one. What would you ask of the gods?" Revna hesitated, the weight of such an offer settling on her shoulders. She thought of her life back in Midgard, of the mysterious figure who had first set her on this path. of the challenges she had faced and overcome. Finally she spoke, her voice soft, but determined. "My lady, if it pleases you, I would ask for the opportunity to continue serving the realms. I've seen wonders and faced dangers I never imagined. I don't think I can go back to my old life now." Freya's eyes sparkled with approval. "A noble request, and one I am happy to grant. From this day forward you shall be known as Revna, friend of Asgard and protector of the realms." As cheers erupted around them and golden mead flowed freely, Revna felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. The return of Brisingamen had brought more than just light to Asgard. It had illuminated a new path for a once-lost thief. The celebration lasted long into the night, with tales of Revna's bravery growing more elaborate with each retelling. And as the first light of a new dawn broke over Asgard, it heralded not just the start of a new day, but the beginning of a new legend, one that would be sung in the halls of Valhalla for ages to come. As the celebration of Brisingamen's return began to wind down, Revna found herself standing on a balcony overlooking the shimmering expanse of Asgard. The golden city gleamed in the soft light of dawn, its spires reaching towards a sky painted in hues of pink and lavender. The young thief's mind was still reeling from the events of the past few days, her new title of Friend of Asgard and Protector of the Realms sitting heavily upon her shoulders. Lost in thought, Revna barely noticed the soft footsteps approaching until a gentle voice broke through her reverie. "It's quite a view, isn't it?" Revna turned to find Freya standing beside her, the goddess's beauty even more radiant in the light of the new day. Brisingamen glowed softly at her throat, pulsing in time with the rhythm of the universe. "My lady," Revna said, bowing her head respectfully. Yes, it's breathtaking." Freya smiled, her eyes twinkling with warmth. "Please, there's no need for such formality. You've more than earned the right to speak freely." The goddess moved to stand beside Revna, her gaze sweeping over the landscape before them. For a moment they stood in companionable silence, the cool morning breeze carrying the sweet scent of Idun's orchards. "You know," Freya began, her voice soft and contemplative, "in all my eons of existence I've rarely encountered a mortal quite like you, Revna." Revna felt a blush creep up her cheeks. I'm not sure I understand, Freya, I'm just a thief who got caught up in something much bigger than herself." Freya turned to face her, her expression serious yet kind. "And that's precisely what makes you extraordinary. A thief, yes, but one with a heart brave enough to face gods and giants and a spirit strong enough to resist the temptations of power." The goddess reached out, gently taking Revna's hands in her own. As their skin made contact, Revna felt a warm tingle of divine energy flow through her. "My gratitude goes beyond mere words or titles, Revna," Freya continued. "You've restored more than just my necklace. You've helped maintain the delicate balance of the realms. For that I wish to bestow upon you a gift." Revna's eyes widened in surprise. "A gift? But I thought the title and the opportunity to serve were my reward." Freya's laugh was like the chiming of silver bells. "Oh, my dear, those were not gifts. Those were responsibilities you've earned through your actions. No, what I offer now is something more personal." The goddess released one of Revna's hands and reached up to touch Brisingamen. A small spark of golden light detached from the necklace, floating gently through the air until it hovered between them. "This is a fragment of Brisingamen's power," Freya explained, her voice taking on a reverent tone. "It contains a portion of my own essence. With it, you'll find your natural talents enhanced. Your stealth will rival that of the shadows themselves. Your wit will sharpen to match the keenest of blades, and your ability to navigate between realms will grow." The spark of light drifted towards Revna, circling her once before sinking into her chest. A warm glow spread through her body, and for a brief moment, Revna felt as if she could see the very threads of fate stretching out before her. I don't know what to say," Revna stammered, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the gift. Freya smiled softly. "You need not say anything. Simply use this gift wisely in your new role as protector of the realms. As the glow faded, Revna felt different. Not dramatically so, but as if something fundamental had shifted within her. She stood a little straighter, her senses seemed a touch sharper, and the world around her appeared more vivid than before. "There is one more aspect to my gift," Freya added, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "Should you ever find yourself in dire need, you may call upon me directly. Simply speak my name thrice while holding this." The goddess waved her hand, and a small, intricately carved wooden charm appeared in Revna's palm. It was warm to the touch, and seemed to hum with barely contained power. "But be warned," Freya cautioned, her tone growing serious. "This is not a gift to be used lightly. Call upon me only in your darkest hour, when all other options have been exhausted." Revna nodded solemnly, carefully tucking the charm into a secure pocket. "I understand, Freya. Thank you. For everything." The goddess's expression softened once more. "No, Revna. Thank you. Now come. The day grows late and there is much for you to learn about your new role." As they turned to leave the balcony, Revna caught sight of her reflection in a polished golden surface. She looked much the same as before, and yet, there was a new light in her eyes, a confidence in her bearing that hadn't been there before. "Revna, friend of Asgard and protector of the realms," she whispered to herself, testing the weight of the words on her tongue. For the first time since this wild adventure began, it didn't feel like an ill-fitting costume. It felt right. It felt like destiny. As Revna followed Freya back into the halls of Asgard, she knew that her life had changed irrevocably. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges she could scarcely imagine. But with Freya's gratitude warming her heart, and the goddess's gift thrumming through her veins, Revna felt ready to face whatever the future might hold. The mortal thief who had stumbled into the realm of gods had been transformed. And as the sun climbed higher in the Asgardian sky, it heralded the dawn of a new legend, one that would be whispered in reverent tones across all the 9 realms for ages to come. The cool morning air of Midgard filled Revna's lungs as she stood atop a grassy hill overlooking her hometown. The familiar sight of thatched roofs and winding streets seemed somehow different now, as if she were viewing it through new eyes. In many ways, she supposed, she was. It had been a week since her return from Asgard, a week spent adjusting to the weight of her new responsibilities and the subtle changes wrought by Freya's gift. The wooden charm hung warm against her chest, a constant reminder of the incredible journey that had led her to this moment. "Well, Skuggy," Revna said, glancing down at the old tomcat who had faithfully awaited her return. "What do you think? Ready for a new adventure?" The cat merely yawned in response, but Revna could have sworn there was a glint of understanding in those yellow eyes. As she made her way down the hill and into the town, Revna could feel the curious stares of her fellow villagers. Whispers followed in her wake, a mix of awe and suspicion. "Is that really Revna? I heard she was taken by the gods. Look at her eyes, they seem different somehow." Revna did her best to ignore the murmurs, focusing instead on the task at hand. She had unfinished business to attend to before she could truly embrace her new role. The door to the local tavern creaked as Revna pushed it open, the dim interior a stark contrast to the bright morning outside. In the corner, hunched over a mug of ale despite the early hour, sat a figure Revna recognized all too well. "Hello, Bjorn," Revna said, her voice steady as she approached the table. The man's head snapped up, his bloodshot eyes widening in shock and fear. "Revna? But how? You thought you'd sent me on a fool's errand," Revna finished, sliding into the seat across from him. "That I'd never return from the realm of the gods?" Bjorn, the man who had blackmailed her into stealing Brisingamen in the first place, seemed to shrink in on himself. I can explain." Revna held up a hand, silencing him. "There's no need. I understand now that you were merely a pawn in a greater game, just as I was." You do?" Bjorn asked, confusion evident in his voice. Revna nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Indeed, and while I haven't forgotten the role you played, I've come to offer you something, a chance at redemption. Bjorn's brow furrowed, suspicion replacing fear in his eyes. What kind of redemption? The kind that comes with purpose, Revna replied, leaning forward. I've been tasked with protecting the realms, Bjorn. All of them, including Midgard. But I can't do it alone. I need eyes and ears in places I can't always be. Understanding dawned on Bjorn's face. You want me to help you? In a manner of speaking, yes, Revna confirmed. Your network of contacts, your knowledge of the underworld, these could be valuable tools in maintaining the balance between realms. For a long moment, Bjorn was silent, his fingers drumming nervously on the table. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. And if I refuse? Revna's expression hardened slightly. Then you continue on as you have been, always looking over your shoulder, wondering when your past might catch up with you. The choice is yours. Another beat of silence passed before Bjorn nodded slowly. All right, Revna. You've got yourself a deal. Where do we start? A genuine smile broke across Revna's face. We start by gathering information. There are disturbances I need to investigate. Rumors of creatures crossing between realms where they shouldn't be able to. As Revna outlined her plans, she felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This was what she was meant to do. Not just protect the realms from grand cosmic threats, but address the smaller imbalances that could, if left unchecked, grow into something far more dangerous. After finishing her conversation with Bjorn and extracting a promise of regular updates, Revna stepped back out into the sunlight. The day seemed brighter somehow, full of possibility. As she made her way through the town, Revna's keen eyes spotted a group of children playing at being heroes and monsters. An idea began to form in her mind. Approaching the group, Revna called out, "Hello there. Mind if I join your game?" The children stopped, staring at her with wide eyes. One brave soul, a young girl with fiery red hair, stepped forward. "Are you really Revna? The one who went to Asgard?" Revna knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with the girl. "I am. And I've got some stories to tell if you'd like to hear them." The children gathered around eagerly, their earlier game forgotten. As Revna began to recount her adventures, carefully edited for young ears of course, she realized the importance of what she was doing. These children and others like them would shape the future of Midgard. By sharing her experiences, by teaching them about the wonders and responsibilities of the 9 realms, she was planting seeds that could grow into something truly remarkable. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the town square, Revna bid farewell to her young audience. Their eyes shone with wonder and excitement, and she could almost see the spark of possibility igniting in their minds. Walking back to her modest home, Revna felt a profound sense of peace. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges she could scarcely imagine. But for the first time in her life, she felt truly prepared to face them. This was more than just a new beginning for her. It was a chance to make a real difference, to help shape the future of not just Midgard, but all the realms. As Revna opened her door, Skuggi winding around her legs in greeting, she smiled to herself. "Well, old friend," she said, reaching down to scratch the cat behind the ears. "I think this is the start of something truly extraordinary." And as night fell over Midgard, Revna, once a simple thief, now friend of Asgard and protector of the realms, began to plan her next adventure. The 9 worlds awaited, and she was ready to face whatever challenges they might bring. As the golden sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a hush fell over the small village nestled in the heart of Midgard. Children scurried home, their laughter fading as they answered their parents' calls for supper. But in one modest home, tucked away at the edge of the forest, a different kind of magic was about to unfold. Inside, A group of wide-eyed children gathered around a crackling hearth, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. Seated in a well-worn chair was Astrid, her silver hair gleaming in the firelight, her eyes twinkling with the wisdom of years. "Grandmother," piped up young Eric, his voice filled with excitement, "will you tell us a story?" Astrid smiled warmly, looking around at the eager faces before her. "Ah, and what story would you like to hear tonight, my dears?" "Tell us about Revna," exclaimed Freya, named after the very goddess who played a crucial role in the tale. "Tell us how she saved the realms." The other children nodded enthusiastically, settling in closer as Astrid leaned forward, her voice taking on a magical quality that seemed to make the very air shimmer with anticipation. "Very well," she began. "Let me tell you the tale of Revna, the mortal thief who became a legend among gods and giants alike." As Astrid wove her tale, the children were transported to a time long past, when the boundaries between realms were more fluid, and the gods walked more freely among mortals. "Revna was clever, you see," Astrid continued, her hands moving expressively as she spoke. "Clever enough to outsmart even the trickster god Loki himself." "But grandmother," interrupted young Bjorn, his brow furrowed in confusion, "how could a mortal outsmart a god?" Astrid's eyes twinkled mischievously. "Ah, that's the beauty of it, my dear. Revna may have been mortal, but she had something even the gods sometimes lack, the courage to stand up for what's right no matter the cost." As the story unfolded, detailing Revna's perilous journey through the 9 worlds, her encounters with gods and giants, and her ultimate triumph in returning Brisingamen to Freya, the children gasped and cheered at all the right moments. Their imaginations ran wild, picturing the shimmering rainbow of the Bifrost and the golden halls of Asgard. "But what happened after?" asked Ingrid, the youngest of the group. "After Revna returned the necklace?" Astrid smiled softly, her voice taking on a more reverent tone. "Ah, that's where the true legend begins, my dear. For you see, Revna's journey didn't end with returning Brisingamen. It was just the beginning." She went on to tell of how Revna became a protector of the realms, using her newfound gifts and connections to maintain the delicate balance between worlds. The children listened, enraptured, as Astrid recounted tales of Revna's continued adventures, how she brokered peace between warring elf factions, outsmarted greedy dwarves, and even helped Thor recover Mjolnir when it was stolen by cunning frost giants. As the story neared its end, Astrid's voice grew soft, filled with a mixture of reverence and nostalgia. "And so, my dears, Revna's legend lives on. It's said that even now, centuries later, she watches over the realms, stepping in when the balance is threatened." "But grandmother," Eric piped up again, his eyes wide with wonder, "is it all true? Did Revna really do all those things?" Astrid's smile was enigmatic as she replied, "Ah, that's the magic of legends, my dear. They live in the hearts of those who believe in them. Whether every detail is true doesn't matter as much as the lessons we learn from them." She leaned forward, her gaze sweeping over each child. "And what do you think those lessons are?" The children were quiet for a moment, pondering. Then, one by one, they began to speak up. "To be brave," said Freya. "To stand up for what's right," added Bjorn. "To be clever and use your wits," chimed in Ingrid. Astrid nodded, her face glowing with pride. "Yes, all of those and more. Revna's tale teaches us that even the smallest among us can make a difference, that loyalty and courage are more powerful than any magic, and that the choices we make shape not just our own destiny, but the fate of all those around us." As the fire began to die down and the children's eyelids grew heavy, Astrid concluded her tale. "And so, my dears, whenever you face a challenge that seems too big, or a problem that appears unsolvable, remember Revna. Remember that within each of you lies the potential for greatness, the power to change the world for the better." The children nodded sleepily, their minds still filled with images of heroic deeds and fantastic realms. As their parents came to collect them, each child hugged Astrid tightly, whispering thanks for the story. Once the last child had left, Astrid stood slowly, making her way to the window. She gazed out at the star-filled sky, her hand unconsciously reaching up to touch a small wooden charm that hung around her neck. "The legend lives on," she whispered to the night, a secret smile playing on her lips, in more ways than one. And as the village settled into peaceful slumber, the tale of Revna, once a simple thief turned legendary protector of the realms, continued to weave its magic. It lived in the dreams of children, in the hopes of the downtrodden, and in the hearts of all who dared to believe that one person, no matter how small, could make a difference in the vast tapestry of the universe. The legend of Revna, friend of Asgard and protector of the realms, had indeed become a beloved bedtime story, whispered by parents to their children as they drifted off to sleep. But more than that, it had become a beacon of hope, a reminder of the extraordinary potential that lies within every mortal heart. And in that way, Revna's legacy would continue to shape the 9 worlds for generations to come.